Meta events are one of the most important parts of Guild Wars 2. Massive activities found all throughout the world of Tyria that requires a large group of players and some coordination between them in order to conquer. Over the years of this game's life, meta events have risen to become one of the pillars of Guild Wars 2's gameplay. And today, I want to go over the top 10 greatest meta events in the entire game. This list does not include world bosses, as I made a separate top 10 list for that previously. Let's get started. In the number 10 spot is Dragonfall. This is both one of the most popular metas and one of the most popular gold farms in the game. And I like it a lot myself, but definitely not as much as some other people do. This is one of those metas that you can do over and over, and people definitely do it over and over. Overall, it's a really fun meta that can net you a good amount of gold. The map itself takes place on the Elder Dragon Krakatorik, who is pinned underneath giant islands torn away from the realms of 3 different human gods, Melandru, Grinth, and Balthazar. You start the meta with pushing into the map with 3 different groups, one into each of the different areas corresponding with one of the human gods. But the nice thing about this part is that the push is pretty relaxed compared to other maps, where you can take your time to progress each of the 3 different areas, and you don't have to worry too much about coordination until the next phase of the meta begins. Whereas each area is fully conquered and fortified, a full-on assault on the Elder Dragon begins, where the entire map joins together to attack Krakatorik's weak points, where the fight is pretty hectic with a lot of gliding and skyscaling to be done, alongside a mid-phase where the team has to split up into 3 groups to fight 3 different bosses. And I just love the cadence of this entire meta, where you go from a relatively chill attack on the 3 different areas, to exploring each of the areas and helping fortify the region, to a massive battle against an Elder Dragon, to the post-meta event chain where you run around the map killing a bunch of bonus bosses for loot. And the vibes with the Elder Dragon and all the different mist realms are also really great and help make this meta a really enjoyable experience. In the number 9 spot is the Temple of Balthazar. This is the only meta from the original launch of Guild Wars 2 that I have on my list, where vanilla has a ton of different metas such as all the other Orient temples that are good and bad in different ways, where with evolution in Guild Wars 2 over the years, metas have definitely gotten better and better. But looking back, the Temple of Balthazar was just a fantastic meta. Today, it's definitely a lot easier than it used to be because of power creep, and ultimately that's for the best. However, I don't see this meta active often because of its reset timer and how it's often completed. But the meta takes place in Straits of Devastation and begins at Fort Trinity, where there are 3 massive pushes out from Fort Trinity and into ore that begin. The Northern Invasion and Central Invasion largely take place in the water and involve submarines, dealing with minefields, and reaching the shore of ore, whereas the Southern Invasion takes place on land, where you have to breach the gates of ore and march inwards. When one invasion force makes it to the Pact rally point, the assault on the Temple of Balthazar can begin, but will be easier should more invasion forces rally there as well, where you have to march with the Pact forces into the Temple of Balthazar and defeat the risen priest of Balthazar to claim control of the temple. Should you succeed, a vendor will unlock, which I believe used to be the only way to get obsidian shards in the game. Additionally, back when servers are still relevant in PvE, all the statues of Balthazar across all 3 maps of ore would become inactive. But now with mega servers, all the statues in the Straits of Devastation in the same instance that the temple is claimed will be inactive. And overall, I just love the vibes and themes of this entire event, and also the historical importance of it in the history books of Guild Wars 2. In the number 8 spot is Casino Blitz. This might be the most unique meta on this entire list. Located in the Crystal Oasis, you have the free city of Amnoon, where the citizens of Amnoon are welcoming outlanders from Tyria into their city as they begin to march into the Crystal Desert to deal with Balthazar, Palawadan the Branded, and every other massive threat that seeks to bring the desert to its knees, like the Choya. And this is a meta that has you using mounts to navigate across the city instead of fighting, though there is a little bit of fighting going on, where the objective is to run all the way around the city collecting as many casino coins as you can. If the entire map is able to collect enough, they move on to the next phase, where there will be casino coins in another section of the city, where you do the same thing again a 3rd time. Upon completing all 3 rounds, a special bonus event will begin with a giant Choya Pinata that everyone can destroy to get some loot. There are just a lot of factors about this meta that come together to make it a really solid event chain. You got a special infusion that drops from this event that gives a big incentive for players to run this over and over. The event itself is pretty rewarding, so a lot of players will do it daily to get those rewards as well. The meta is very unique compared to most other metas in the game, which is a fantastic change of pace. The environment, themes, and vibes of these events and all the bonus things going on, like with all the troublemakers, is great. And I love how you can get some really special rewards by turning in all the casino coins that you collect during this event. In the number 7 spot is Verdant Brink. This is the first meta from the Heart of Thorns expansion, which is an expansion that we will be talking about again and again throughout the rest of this video. But Verdant Brink's meta is one we can consider in two parts. The first takes place during daytime and is 5 different metas around the map that all have to do with rallying the packed forces that have been shot down by Mordermoth. Each meta is pretty unique, takes place in a different part of the map, and involves different characters and storylines. But the meta that I care more about for this video is the Night meta, also known as Night and the Enemy. This is a meta that starts as nightfall besets the map. While you have supported all of the outposts during the day and helped establish different rally points, Mordermoth is launching an all-out assault on the packed forces, where the entire map has to defend many different rally points across the map, reinforce the rally points by bringing in supplies and helping the packed out with a few different operations, and as night progresses, 5 different massive bosses will appear high in the canopy above Verdant Brink that the map will have to defeat. Typically, you will always see the Wyvern Matriarch be defeated near reset each day for the daily reward, but you can obviously find groups to participate in the full meta. And I just love this meta because it's a ton of small events that lead into some fun boss fights, where the vibes with how it's the Pact trying to rally after being shot down, and now they're being attacked from all sides is just fantastic. In the number 6 spot is the Chak Gerent. This is the third meta from the Heart of Thorns expansion that takes place in Tangle Depths and is also known as the King of the Jungle. This is a really fun meta that is one of the most popular activities in the entire game. The central point of this event chain is the Leyline Confluence, a massive hub of ley energy, and going off the confluence are 4 massive lanes that correspond with the 4 different outposts, where at the mouth of each tunnel, the Pact have cannons that they're going to use to blow a hole in the wall to be able to get into Dragon's Stand, where the gathering of energy has stirred up the Chak and they're about to swarm the area. Players have to organize themselves between each of the 4 lanes to beat back the different Chak. Each lane has a special mechanic that can force a Chak Gerent to emerge so that players can attack him, where I really enjoy how each mechanic is pretty unique from each other and requires players to do different things in order to complete the event. But as each group in each lane is able to defeat their Chak Gerent without the Gerent reaching the Pact's cannons, the map will be victorious and the Pact will be able to punch a hole into Dragon's Stand. This meta is pretty important for a wide variety of different collections, drops one of the most expensive items in all Guild Wars 2, and is just a really fun event chain. In the number 5 spot is Drizzlewood Coast. This is a map that released in 2 separate updates, and each update brought a massive map-wide meta to the game, where with both releases being in the game, you can consider each one as a separate meta, and you can also combine the 2 together to call it a mega meta, or something. Across the entire game, doing both of these metas is probably one of the longest event chains in the entire game, if not the longest. Whenever there is a completely fresh version of the map, the United Legions hold a small base camp in Umbral Grotto, where they have to work their way out of the camp and into Drizzlewood Coast to beat back the Dominion. There is a western lane and eastern lane that players work through, capturing bases, defeating bosses, and marching further and further north. There are a wide variety of different events and rewards that you can get, and it all culminates in a showdown at Wolf's Crossing where you have to defeat 3 very special bosses. But once the south meta is completed, or if you get into a map where it's set to have the south meta already completed, you can push north across the bridge at Wolf's Crossing and into the northern half of the map, where you have to fight a wide variety of different Dominion and Frost Legion forces that all culminates in a massive siege on the Frost Citadel, where this battle in the Frost Citadel feels a lot like a raid instance set in the open world, where you have a variety of very special bosses that you can fight with a few events in between each one, where you progress all the way through the Citadel, sabotaging it along the way to eventually fight a Claw of Jormag at the end of the meta. And overall, this map is just a massive and epic full-scale war zone that is like World vs. World but set in the open world. Truly a fantastic experience. In the number 4 spot is Dragon's End. This is a massive meta event technically called the Battle for the Jade Sea, located in the 4th map from the End of Dragons expansion. Guild Wars 2 has a tendency to name the locations where you fight Elder Dragons as Dragons something, like with Dragonfall, and this is yet another example of it, where this meta revolves around beating back the Void Corrupted Suwan in order to buy some time for the events of the End of Dragons story. There is a preparation phase where you can do a variety of events to get some buffs that will help you during the meta, but the meta itself has 3 large lanes that players will work down. The central lane is pretty short, where only a few players will do those events before meeting up with the 2 other lanes on the western and eastern sides of the map, where you march all the way south down the map towards the Harvest Temple. Where as you get towards the Harvest Temple, you have to deal with different pockets of void corruption, and then you all group up together to eventually go up to the top of the Harvest Temple, where you have a massive showdown with the final Elder Dragon boss in the game, where the fight itself is incredible, has beautiful visuals, has absolutely incredible music, and has phenomenal voice acting. There are so many artistic elements of this meta that come together to just make it incredible. But on top of all of that, this meta is considered one of the most difficult meta events in the entire game, where at the end of the day, it's super easy and it has only ever gotten easier since its release. But compared to most other meta events, this one requires a decent amount of coordination with a relatively vocal commander shouting orders. I have so many fond memories of doing this meta event over and over when Ender Dragons came out, and I had so much fun commanding it, where there are so many different elements and complexities to this fight that players have to navigate through that just makes it so much fun. In the number 3 spot is Dragon Stand, yet another dragon something map where you fight an Elder Dragon, where this entire map is a massive war zone that has been built up throughout the Ender Dragons expansion. Throughout all 3 maps, you are rallying the fallen pact forces together, making new allies with those who live in the jungle, and gathering intel on the Elder Dragon Mordramoth, where this meta is the culmination of all those activities as you lead a massive siege against the mouth of Mordramoth, while a strike force infiltrates the Heart of Thorns during the story. In a fresh map, you start at the pact base camp and have to divide the map into 3 groups to march down the 3 different lanes. As you leave the pact base camp, you have a variety of different escort sections, boss fights, events, and fun areas to explore. Whereas you push towards the dragon's domain and defeat the Mordrim along the way, the Mordrim are launching assaults on their own up the lane to fight back against you, where there are constantly more groups of enemies spawning and walking down the lane, including 3 different massive bosses. As you get towards the Blighting Towers and the outskirts of the dragon's domain, each group will have to defeat those 3 different massive bosses again in order to gain access to the final area, whereas each Blighting Tower is claimed, the group converges atop many different floating islands in the dragon's domain, a massive pocket of leyline energy surrounding the massive tree known as the Heart of Thorns, where you have to fight bosses, various Mordrim, dodge Mordrim wyverns, fly around the domain, and fight the mouth of Mordramoth along the way. Where this entire meta is an epic siege on an Elder Dragon that all leads up to an incredible fight against an Elder Dragon. However, since it has been nearly 9 years since Heart of Thorns released, this meta has become easier and easier, which unfortunately has made it a little less epic, and there has been a small push in the community to buff the mouth of Mordramoth, which hopefully we'll see happen in the future. In the number 2 spot is the Defense of Amnytas. This is the massive meta event located in Amnytas, the second full map from the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, where right off the bat, I want to say for the first of 5 times in this section, this meta is so epic. The entire meta revolves around fighting Nerys, the Eyes of the Abyss, an absolutely epic looking eldritch-esque demon that can be found coming out of a massive portal at the top of the World Spire, where you have to fight a large variety of tentacles of Nerys, hop into your sky scale to fly around, and fight some small tentacles and work together to strike down Nerys. There are a ton of fun elements with how you occasionally get teleported into a shadow realm and you have to free yourself from it, how you can fly around on your sky scale to collect some energy, use your sky scale to shoot the eyes of Nerys, and more. And overall, everything is just super epic. But there's an additional element to this fight, and that is the story going on here, where the Astral Ward are defending Amnytas from this demon incursion, and this is such a dangerous and powerful force that the Wizard's Court and Astral Ward have agreed that they must enact a last resort action, a strategic scenario response protocol in the events of a multi-point rift-based Amnytas incursion known as Operation Mosaic Wrath. This is a last resort measure as it requires decades of siphoning magic in order to have enough to use in this one event, and it will leave the Astral Ward vulnerable following it. But Nerys is a big enough of a threat that this has to be done. You work alongside Dagda and the other wizards and members of the Astral Ward to enact this epic action that eventually results in your success as Nerys is driven back through the rift and Amnytas is saved. Just every part of this event is incredible, with the demons and the operation and the World Spire and every other part of it. This is one of my favorite parts of the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, and this epic event is one of my favorites across all of Guild Wars 2. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite meta event in all Guild Wars 2, and has got to go to the battle in Tarir. This is the massive map meta event that happens in Orc Basin where you fight the Octavine. Across all of Guild Wars 2, I would say this is probably the most played meta event in all of Guild Wars 2, except for maybe the Road Boss Torquato, and this is probably the most popular across the entire Guild Wars 2 community. This meta has a very rich history that I talked a lot about in my top 10 maps in Guild Wars 2 video, related to how many times this event has been completed, the farms that came out of it, and the strange community groups and events that transpired because of this meta, where when you look at the culture of Guild Wars 2, this is one of the most impactful activities in the entire game, not only from the historical events that transpired in this meta, but also the long-lasting effects it has had on the community with a variety of different memes like the panic meme and its 3,000 different offshoots. But the meta itself is just incredible, where before the meta you can help out the exalted with activating all the different pylons around the map. And as the meta is about to begin, you can fight a few different groups of Mordrim and also participate in super fun activities to gain access to enchanted armors that are incredibly important in helping out the group during the Octavine fight itself. Whereas the meta fully begins, the entire map has to be split into 4 different groups to attack the Octavine from 4 different angles, where each of the different sections has a very unique mechanic that you have to do in order to expose the Octavine so your group can attack it. But similar to many other events in the game, all 4 Octavines have to be defeated within 2 minutes of each other. Nowadays, with the combination of power creep and how the community has this event down to an exact science, you tend to beat this event in less than 3 minutes, as South will just full burn the Octavine on their first opportunity, and the other 3 sections can clean theirs up in the 2 minutes following South going down. But overall, it is still a super fun event. But as all 4 Octavines are defeated, you save Tarir and you get a fun looting stage where you can go underneath Tarir to loot a bunch of chests and explore some fun areas you can normally only access in the story. There's also a hero challenge and a bonus boss down here that tends to get annihilated as the entire map runs through here. And all in all, it's just a fun bonus phase to a really fun event. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. These are my personal favorite metas across the entirety of Guild Wars 2. I threw some honorable mentions down in the description as well, but I would love to hear what your own favorite meta event is in Guild Wars 2. Additionally, if you like this video, consider watching top 10 road bosses or top 10 maps in Guild Wars 2. Both of which are on your screen now. I hope you are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.